with Ruben Amaro Jr., Jim Salisbury. I am Todd Zolecki. It is Monday, April 29th, 2024. The Phillies coming off a sweep of the Padres in San Diego. The Phillies are 19-10 overall. They're 18-8 in April. Guys, do you know the Phillies have never won 19 games in the month of April ever? They have a chance to do that tonight in Anaheim. They're a game and a half behind the Braves. The Phillies, who always get off the slow starts, can now say they're tied for the third best record in Major League Baseball with the Yankees. They're really playing good baseball. And I thought a good way to start this episode would be talking about a guy whom I'm wondering, is he having a breakout year? And that is Alec Bohm. We've talked a lot about him. We kind of touched on him actually in the last episode, moving up to the cleanup spot. He's having a great year. I mean, he's driving a ton of runs. He's hitting for some power. And am I overstating it, guys, when I say, is this the year he finally breaks out, makes an all-star team, enters the conversation maybe as a outside long shot MVP candidate? Am I nuts or not?
Ruben?
I think all those things are possible. So the beauty of what Alec Bohm brought to the table when he was drafted was that the guy was just more of a pure hitter than he was a power guy in the first place. And he's sort of going through that old school progression, right? I always believe that and I think of the guy that I think about is like a Rafael Palmeiro. And I know there was some question about, PEDs and all that stuff later on in his career. But Rafael Palmeiro was a very, very good pure hitter. I think he came out of Mississippi State or Mississippi, whatever. Anyway, he was a really, really, really good hitter. And in fact, when he got to the Cubs in the big leagues, he had no ability to pull the ball. He hit everything from second base to the left side of the field. And the question was, well, this guy's a first baseman or a corner outfielder. Is he going to ever have enough power to play those positions, even though he's just a good, solid singles hitter, gap to gap type of a hitter? Well, much like a lot of guys who have great bat speed and guys who have great eye-hand coordination and just ability to hit, I think you're seeing that out of Alec Bohm right now. He was a very good pure hitter. He's always been a very good pure hitter. It's always, he's always been able to go sort of gap to gap. But the question was he going to be able to get consistently to the inside pitch, the fastball inside, because he's got really long levers, and whether or not he's going to be able to get extension on pitches on the inside part of the plate. And will he ever really loft the ball consistently, to hit 35 or 40 home runs? I think he had the raw power to do that, but his swing path just isn't, it's not like a home run type of a launch angle swing path. And I just love the fact that he is now, I talk to Charlie Manuel about this all the time. He's starting to understand when he needs to make contact out front. There's certain pitches that he can now, instead of letting them get too deep, which is a great ability that he has, is letting the ball get deep because he can take a fastball on the inside part and smoke it to right center or smoke it to right. But he's also now learning that he can get a pitch that's maybe a little softer or a mistake pitch in the middle of the plate and turn on it. So you see him drilling some balls down the left field line. Now, are they going out of the ballpark all the time? No, but he's smoking them and they're extra base hits. And who cares? I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when you're having those types of at-bats and you're hitting the hard, who cares whether you're hitting home runs? You're producing runs. You're producing bullets. You're hitting the baseball all over the place. And as long as you're hitting the ball hard somewhere and doing it as consistently as he is, it's a fun thing to watch, man. I know this is, every hitter gets hot and, has those hot spurts and he'll cool off. There's no question. Nobody can hit like this for the rest of their lives. It's not going to happen. But his overall approach has put him in this position. And I think his overall confidence and ability to make contact a little bit further out front in his contact point and being confident to be able to do that, reach out more comfortably and in a more relaxed way. I think it's going to make him one of the more complete hitters moving forward, because it's harder to go from being, a home run hitter to being like a, making contact and being able to cover plate than going the other way. And I think that this is just like an old school progression for a young man who now feels very comfortable in his skin as a player and is becoming the kind of offensive player that I think that they hoped they were getting when they drafted him.
Yeah, I think you mentioned he's getting comfortable in his skin, and I think hand in hand with that is confidence. You mentioned that as well. I just see a very confident hitter who has stayed true to his style of hitting. If there were ever temptations, and I don't know that they ever asked him to lift the ball, but if there were ever temptations to do that in baseball in the 2020s, we see a lot of it. He's resisted it. He's got a little inside out, and he's really learning to use the bat head, line drive approach. I remember when they drafted him, looking at his numbers at Wichita State, and there was you could see a player that just got better. You could just see it in the numbers. A player that got better and better every year. Cape Cod League, Wichita State. You also could see that he was a selective hitter. He really knew the strike zone. One word that bothers me is patience. We say somebody, a hitter, be patient. To me, the goal should be selectivity, because you get a cookie early. Why do you want to be patient?
Right.
But he's a very selective hitter and has had that kind of in his DNA. And I just see a guy really learning to use the bat head to his advantage, and you're seeing the confidence right now. And I just think it's an amazing story because, and the way he hits with runners on base is been amazing since day one. But I think it's a great story because we all know that night against the Mets when he made the errors, but that to me was only shows part of his journey. If you look back to the spring of 2022, you remember this, Todd. I mean, he really lacked confidence.
Yep.
At one point, Joe Girardi started playing Bryson Stott at third base and pronounced that he has a chance to be the opening day guy, with Bohm having to go to AAA. And I remember him walking around the clubhouse that spring and, looking at times forlorn, looking like he lost his best friend, just looking like he needed a shot of confidence. And he's gotten it, with the help of others, but he's gotten it through his performance. I mean, he was legitimately a trade candidate in the spring of 2022. And I'm going to tell you how I know this.
I remember you writing this.
Well, I got a call one day, Ruben, from a scout from another team, and during in Clearwater, and he said, "Hey, look, I've watched Alec Bohm play a ton. I know all about him, between the lines as a player. Is he a good guy? Tell me, do the teammates like him? Is he a good guy in the clubhouse? Just tell me about he's doing that background you do on guys." And he kind of swore me to secrecy, and I think now I'm safe. But I mean, I can extrapolate from that he was available for a trade. And so, I mean, it's so win-win. The guy is performing better. He's doing a great job. He's a core player. And he could have been moved on. They could have moved on from him probably at a couple times. So patience, I mentioned I didn't like that word, but I do like it in this regard in terms of player development. Mm-hmm. I think because of the money and the pressure to get to the big league quickly and perform, we lose patience in the player development process. I think he's a testament to what some patience can do and some player development can do at the big league level. Development doesn't start the day you arrive in the majors. He's gotten better while playing in the majors, and offensively and defensively. And now what we're seeing is an immensely confident player, a player who believes he belongs, a player who is delivering, a player who is, I mean, when I watch that kid hit a double and stand on second base and do this and smile, I see joy of the game in that face, and I love it. I love a good story, and Alec Bohm is a good story, a good human story of sticking with it, of getting better, of, going from looking over your shoulder and you're looking tentative like a newborn giraffe who can barely stand up to a guy who's now going to make a bid for the All-Star game. So boop. Hats off to all Alec Bohm.
How about this in terms of development? Rob Thompson, Ruben, I think you were there last week in Cincinnati. He said something that if he would have said this 2 years ago, he would have been laughed out of the dugout. He said, I think right now Alec Bohm is an above average defensive third baseman. And you can, I'm sure if you pulled 10 different scouts, some would say no, some might say yes, some might say he's average. But the fact that Rob Thompson can say that and not get laughed out of the dugout is another example, I think, of that development, right? I mean, he's, a few years ago, he was getting mocked for how bad he was defensively. And now he is somebody that when the ball is hit there, more often than not, you feel like he is going to make the play.
Yeah, I mean, this is part of it. Brings up a really big subject about, young players getting to the big leagues. Typically, they're not finished products. Well, none of them are. I mean, you're watching it with Jackson Holiday. You're watching it with all types of players. Yep. The guys that get to the major leagues are almost never ready to actually be. They're not complete players. They might be ready to compete at the major league level in some way, shape, or form, either defensively or offensively, but they're never a finished product. And it took Jimmy Rollins and Chase Utley 4 years to really become the players that they were going to become. That's why there's a real progression here. And and Alec is a perfect example of that. Not just offensively, but defensively. It was always a question. Okay, we got to move this guy to first base.
Yeah.
He can't play third base. He's got to play. Well, he's worked his butt off. Bobby's done a great job of getting him to the point where he believes in himself again, as a total player, not just as an offensive player. I mean, K-Long's helped him, continue. And there's also one of those things where there is a resistance and a recognition that, okay, this guy can still be a productive player without screwing up his swing. Let this guy, okay, he's not hitting the ball out of the ballpark. Let's not, and you touched on it a little bit. Let's not screw this guy up. Let this guy be himself and be the best version of himself. And that's what you're starting to see right now. And it's going to get better. I really think it's going to get better and better, just overall from year to year. And it is a great story. I'm really, really happy for the guy. Because I can tell you the same sort of thing. I think I was at one of the spring trainings a couple of years ago, and I remember going up to Alec. Hey, Alec, how you doing? What's going on? And shaking his hand, and he sort of shook my hand, and I could see there was tentativeness in his eyes. There was not, and I think it's really cool, Jim, that you noticed. Now with he's high-fiving and doing all that stuff and doing a little shimmy and that kind of stuff. It's cool that he's feeling like he knows he belongs and he knows he can be a productive major league player.
Well, how about the fact
I'm seeing a kid who just loves the game, and it's hard to love the game when you're not playing well. That's why I hate golf, Ruben.
I understand. Sometimes that's a love-hate relationship with me.
Well, one last thought on Bohm for me is, speaking of the comfortability and whatnot and being comfortable in his own skin, this is a guy now when he signs autographs, he might write, I love this place. Like he embraced that moment to the point where he is signing that on autographed baseballs. And there's a t-shirt that some company makes that with his signature on it. To embrace that moment, I think says a lot about his growth as a human being. Yeah,
that's a great decision. And I got to give Kevin Gregg some love for that, in the PR department. He's running communications with the Phillies for sort of advising him, hey, you're going to have to face this. You're going to have to, come clean with it and be honest with the people about it. And I think they handle it in a beautiful way. And it's really helped him.
And remember, with Alex, now he's graduated, I guess you could say, to the cleanup spot last handful of games last week. But, all the hand-wringing about they're not slugging. Well, their slugging percentage has gone way up here in the last 2 weeks. And they're leading the league in home runs now.
It's crazy.
There you have it. And there you have it.
It's just, you can't fret over a slow start when you have track records like this, when you have ascending players like a Bohm, like a Stott, like a Marsh, guys who are, you have the core nucleus with the track records, you have the ascending guys. Nice mix, no?
It's a great mix. And it's, Stott might be heating up as well. He's been off to a slow start. So, man, you get that bottom of the lineup going, and you get Johan Rojas just getting on base a little bit every once in a while. It's so big. And, Bryce is going to take off at some point. I mean, he's been pretty good, but he's going to take off at some point. But to have Bohm and Stott, Marsh coming back where it all started for him this week in Anaheim, it looks like a pretty good lineup. And you're right. Like, remember when they were 2-4 and we were talking about how, my gosh, this team can just never get off to a good start. And now they're 19-10.
I was thinking about this today that, because Turner's been hot and Bohm has been otherworldly. Like you mentioned, Bryce hasn't even, we haven't even seen the whites of Bryce's eyes yet. He's going to have one of those months. He's going to have one of those months.
Oh, he's going to have 2 of those months or 3 of those.
2 of those months where it's like an OPS that begins with a 1.1.
Right.
It's going to be dazzling. So he hasn't even begun to fight yet.
So this is also the beauty of what baseball is about. And people talk about, well, it's such a long season. Yeah, it's a long season because there are the ebbs and flows and the adjustments that players make and the ability to stay healthy and all those things are such an important parts. And the great ones have the ability to concentrate for 160 games or the majority of those games. And, I think about, the Hall of Fame players, those guys had an ability to be able to perform at a very, very high level for long periods of time, years and years and years, months and months and months, plate appearance after plate appearance, start after start. And so that's what separates the big boys from the little boys is that their ability to do that on a daily basis. And that's the beauty of the game. I also will say this and reiterate this. One of the reasons why they had the slow starts because I don't think they got enough reps in spring training. I still believe that to be true. Now, I do believe, and we talked about this, that at some point their reps were going to be enough during the course of the season where they're going to start doing what they typically would do, and you're seeing that now.
One guy who got the reps in spring training was Ranger Suarez. JT Realmuto said it a couple of weeks ago. He said, "What's the big difference between what you saw from Ranger in the spring?" He's like, "Well, he was there and he competed." So I got a trivia question for you guys. This is in the Phillies notes yesterday, and I love this. I think it was Chris Ware and Phillies PR put this one in the notes. Ranger Suarez last 4 starts, 4-0, 0.30 ERA. Each of those 4 games were played in 2 hours and 15 minutes or less. He is the first pitcher in baseball, Major League Baseball, to win 4 consecutive starts in a game that's 2 hours and 15 minutes or less since which pitcher? You guys knew him.
I would say Jim Cott.
A little bit more recent than Jim Cott.
I would say
You're warm, Ruben.
Is he warm because he's a left-hander?
He's warm because it's in that era. He's in that era.
Oh, Steve Carlton?
No.
It's Roy Halladay.
Roy Halladay.
Yeah.
Roy Halladay. September 1st to the 17th, 2003, 4 straight starts, all under 2 hours and 15 minutes.
Another guy I acquired. That's right. That's right. I'm posing.
Do this.
I'll give him one of these.
Yeah.
Shimmy. Listen, this staff is just ridiculous. I know I'm sure we'll hit on some of it, but from top to bottom, it's just been spectacular. I was looking at some numbers.
18 quality starts, guys. 18.
I've been watching this and I gotta sort of refute the power rankings they came out with this morning that the Phillies were 7th in MLB.com. 7th. I'm like, dude, what is that guy smoking? There's no way in the world that this is the 7th best team in baseball. I mean, now they might be number 1. They're either 1 or 2, especially with the pitching. I mean, obviously Atlanta's playing their asses off too, but I mean, it's tough to cover some ground. But they're up there with them. They're right, neck and neck with them because of the length and breadth of their rotation.
I know.
Listen to these numbers on this West Coast trip. So Nola went 8 innings, 7 hits, 1 walk, 10 strikeouts, 70% strike rate. Suarez, 8 innings pitched, 3 hits, no walks, 8 Ks, 67% strike rate. And even Walker, who was throwing really well up until that 1 inning, he blew up at the end. I mean, he threw still, 6 innings, 6 1/3 innings, Most starters can't get through the fifth, and ended up 90 pitches, 59 strikes, 66%. They're throwing strikes, man, and a tremendous rate, and it's just been dazzling.
And it's really good that it's way too early to talk Cy Young, but what the heck, we're on the Todd pod, so we bend the rules a little bit.
Let's throw it out there, baby.
If they were to do the Cy Young today, and it's ridiculously early, I admit it, you probably have the winner and the second or third place finisher in Wheeler, Suarez and Wheeler. I mean, it's crazy, but having with Spencer Turnbull pitching so well, now they're going to give him another start, and it's going to allow them to get Wheeler an extra day, and they're going to get Nola an extra day, which has the potential, to pay dividends down the road.
Sure.
Down the road, September, October. And it really helps your rotation because they're all pitching so well.
Now here's some numbers I actually put together. I'm not a numbers guy, but with these numbers, I think it's important. So Wheeler's had 4 straight starts with 100 plus pitches. Mm-hmm. Nola's had 5 straight starts with averaging over 90 plus pitches. And then Rangers' last 4 starts, he's averaged 98 pitches. So for them, and I know most of these guys don't like to get an extra day, especially Wheeler. We've talked about this before. But I think in this sense, I think this is great. It's a great opportunity to just give them a blow. I mean, it's been 1 month where these guys have been really horsing it. They've been horses. And it just gives them an extra day right there to get them a little bit more, a little bit more space and a little bit more rest.
And what it does is it sends a message that is not hard to decipher. The message is, we're a good club, but we're built to play in October, and we are built to conquer October this year. So, that's what we're investing in. We're investing in keeping you healthy for October because our expectations and our stakes are that high. And
not only that, but they're also protecting the top 3 guys who are going to pitch in the playoffs. So Wheeler, so Wheeler, Suarez, and Nola are the guys, and it might be in that order.
They're getting those 2 big guys. They're getting those 2 big guys a little rest early, or just saving a bullet early because they're expecting to play that 7th month and go really deep. And those guys are so hugely important. They're here to win the World Series. That's what the expectation is, and that's what the stakes are. And it's a cliche, but it's win the World Series or bust for this team. They got the payroll, they got the track records, they got the stars, they got the experience now. They need to do it.
Were you guys encouraged with what Walker did yesterday in San Diego? Up until that last inning, he threw a lot of cutters and sinkers, and he said after the game his splitter was bad, so he barely threw any splitters, and maybe that's just a 1 start thing. He didn't have the feel for the pitch, but up until that point, all eyes were on him going into that start, right? I mean, can you imagine the reaction if he had given up 6 runs in the first 3 innings? It would have been, oh my gosh, people back home would have been going bananas. But up until that last inning, I know people are going to say, oh yeah, but all the runs count. I understand that. But were you guys encouraged that that he's going to keep pitching well or potentially pitching well going forward?
I mean, for me, I was surprised. I actually thought he threw a lot better than I thought he would throw. I honestly thought that he was going to struggle more. And the fact that he did not have his best pitch, literally his best pitch is a split. I mean, that's no secret. And for him to be able to work around that and not have a feel for it and actually pitch effectively, he effectively had a quality start until he didn't have a quality start in that last inning.
Right.
And made 1 bad pitch to a guy who was swinging out of his rear end to try to hit home run. And he threw a fastball, basically sinker, that sank right back into the middle. Center cut into the middle of the plate. I just felt like he threw a lot better than I even expected, honestly. And, it's going to allow him to continue to pitch. And he pitches like that. If he can throw 6 innings of 3-run baseball, oh my goodness. As a number 5 starter?
As the number 5 starter, right. I think people need to remember that he's probably the number 5 starter on this team. So you don't need him to go.
No. He's not getting paid to be a number 5 starter, but that doesn't matter. He's a starter on the staff, and so
the money's been paid. It doesn't matter what role he fits as long as he can give you 6 innings. He's getting that money regardless.
That's correct. And he's benefited from a lot of run support, and that's fine. But if he can give you 6 quality innings every time out, my goodness, there's a whole slew of teams that would love that.
Definitely something to build on for the young man. I mean, definitely something to build on, especially if you can separate the first 6 innings from the going out for the 7th, and you could see him wobbling a little bit there. I think they could even get him out of there a batter earlier, but nonetheless, I think he should come out of there with something to feel good about and something to build on.
Yeah, I was just a little surprised that they didn't have somebody warming and ready. Yeah. That after the first couple of batters, I probably would have taken him out. I don't like to question Rob Thompson because Rob's done a very, very nice job. But in that situation, and Rob talks about it a lot, want to make him feel good about his outing. I know it's a veteran guy; it's not that big of a deal for him. But I bet if it was Christopher Sanchez, he probably would not have started that inning. But that said, I thought maybe that he might get pulled. Somebody would be ready if he faltered the first couple of hitters. Why put yourself in danger? Get him out of there and let him have a feel good about himself moment.
So the Phillies opening a 3-game series Monday night in Anaheim. Angels, again, another team that the Phillies on paper should be able to beat. They have lost 9 out of their last 10. They've lost 4 in a row. It's Christopher Sanchez Monday night versus Griffin Canning, right-hander. He's 1-3 with a 7.50 ERA. Tuesday, Spencer Turnbull getting another shot, possibly his last start for a while if they go back to the 5-man against Tyler Anderson, who's off to a pretty decent start. And then the series finale, Zach Wheeler versus Patrick Sandoval. This is only the 4th time the Phillies have ever played in Anaheim. Do you know that they have not won a game in Anaheim since 2003? I was not on that 2003 trip. I was at the Inquirer at the time. That was my first year on the beat. Jim Salisbury covered that series for me. And one of my favorite stories comes from a series I was not at. Jim, do you know what I'm talking about? That road trip, that series in Anaheim?
I do remember that trip. It was, it was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday series, right?
I think so.
And Larry Bohm and I banged heads a little bit on that trip. He was managing the team, and I had written something during the week that ticked him off. So, and I had written it in my Sunday column in the Inquirer, and so the team does the clips, all the things that are written about the team in all the newspapers and stuff. They print them out, staple them together, and so Larry, they played a home game on Sunday, and Larry took the clips on the plane, and apparently he read something that I wrote and he didn't like, and as John Vukovic later told me, steam was coming out his ears for 5 hours.
You had an effect on people. You did that to me a few times too, Jim. I'll just have you know.
What's that?
You did that to me a few times too. So just
so he had about 5 hours of steam come. So I walk in the clubhouse the next day, and John Vukovic, who we all love dearly, he gave me a little heads up. I actually thought he was kidding at first. He said, "Hey, watch it. He's waiting on you." And I'm like, "Really?" So I step in the office, and he unloads on me. Peter Pasquarelli was there, and Peter's an old, hardened ball writer, and he was shaking. This is how mad Larry was. He had veins sticking out of all parts of his head as he's screaming and yelling at me. And then he he kind of came at me. I thought he was going to punch me, but he was trying to slam the door in my face and get me out of his office because he was sick of looking at me. So there was a rubber stopper, and he couldn't get the rubber stopper out, so he just blew up and throws me out of his office. And so we're kind of a Cold War for 2 days in Anaheim, and
he gave you the freeze.
I got some freeze. I got some evil looks, and meanwhile Vukovic is over there laughing, but Larry was really upset at me. So the third day, I come in the clubhouse and I kind of poked my head in the office, and we decided, as old baseball people do, and you clear the air, and it's over.
Mhm.
So we had a little talk and we cleared the air. He saw where I was coming from. I saw where he was coming from. And it was kind of all good. And Vukovic comes down the hallway and pokes his head in and says, "I just want to make sure everything's all right in here." And Larry pats me on the back and goes, tough love. I'm straightening him out. And as I'm walking out of the room, this was a Wednesday. Thursday's an off day. As I'm walking out of Larry's office, he goes, "Make sure you're in Cincinnati Friday night. I'm leading off Abreu." Because at that time, there was this debate. Abreu had this monstrous on-base percentage, and there was a lot of people wanting to hit leadoff in 03. And he says, "Make sure you're in Cincinnati Friday night. I'm going to lead off Abreu." So I'm like, So he went from wanting to kill me to dropping a story in my lap. And so I had off day story. I wrote I kind of knew to couch it a little bit. But I wrote, been rumored for a while and talked about for a while, but don't be surprised if Friday night Larry Boa leads off Bobby Abreu. And they went into Cincinnati, and sure enough, Bobby Abreu led off, and they got beat 15-1.
He did.
Well, so that
and he led off like 5 games, and that was it. And
that brings up the other story. The other story part of that is that I don't think he ever told Bobby Abreu he was going to lead him off. He didn't have that discussion with him, and he was sort of taken by surprise. And that was it was a thing because he had not been necessarily promised. I get the thought was he was promised to be the 3-hole hitter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not really, that's where Bobby was used to hitting. That's where he wanted to hit. And
Right.
And there was a lot of pride in that. But I don't think Bo ever literally talked to him about it. I don't even know that he mentioned it to him. And all of a sudden, boom.
Well, he talked to me about it.
Yeah. It's great that he talked to you about it because I'm not sure if he told Bobby.
He let him know. He let him know through the Inquirer, the off-day Inquirer story.
There you go.
So that was
that's great.
That ballpark, you played in that ballpark as a rookie, Ruben.
Yeah, I sure did. And it's gone through a whole slew of transformations and changes. Much prettier now than it was back then. But yeah, that's when I got my debut. I was pinch running for Dave Parker. Dave Parker led off. Dave Parker led off with a rocket to right. We were down by a run. And this is actually it's an interesting story. You want to hear this story because it's kind of funny. Dave Parker hits a bullet to right. I come in to pinch run. My very first, I literally could not feel my feet on the ground. I could not feel when I came out of the dugout. I couldn't feel my feet. They bumped me over to second base. Sacrifice, moved me over. I think it was Dick Schofield or whoever it was, but moved me over. I'm at second base, almost slid past the bag. I never knew how slick, the ground in Major League Baseball was, and I almost slid past the bag. Next guy hits like a humpback line drive that Henneman was against Detroit. Henneman almost catches, and so I have to freeze on it. I can't score because Gary Pettis is a center fielder. It's first and third, 1 out. Next guy is Max Venable. And he hits an absolute rocket for a double play, and we lose the game. Ugh. I get one of my coaches come up to me afterwards and goes, do you think they remember you if you got doubled off in that situation or if you scored? I said, if I got doubled off, I would have been crucified. Are you kidding me? And it's like he was sort of blaming me for freezing on the line drive and not scoring on a base hit to center field because it wasn't hit all that well. But Henneman flagged at it and almost caught it. So I froze and then went to third base. So Bobby Knopp could not score me. And then Venable hits a bullet to second base for his 4-6-3 and the game's over. Do you know that was Jeter Hines? So Jeter Hines was one of my coaches in the minor leagues, and he came up to me and said, like he told me I made a base running mistake. Do you know that literally 20 years later after that play, I saw him. I was a GM then, and I go to L.A., and he's working for the Los Angeles Dodgers. He came up to me, to his credit. This is not a lie. He came up to me and said, I have something to apologize to you about. Wow. And so what is it? He said, I told you made a base running mistake, and I have not slept thinking about that play for like 20 years. He said,
Wow.
You absolutely made the right base running play. And we were so pissed off that you couldn't score on that play, and now rightfully so, and that we lost that game because of the next hitter hit a double play to end the game, that we had to find somebody to blame, and for some reason we blamed you. And the reality of it was that I knew in my heart of hearts, when you're a rookie, you're sort of, you don't want to make any mistakes, it's a little, well, for him to have done that and to come to me and apologize to me about it, I swear to God, because I thought that about that for years. That was my very first appearance as a major league player. And then for them to come to me after the game and tell me I screwed it up when I was actually a pretty good base runner generally, and that was sort of one of the things I did well as a minor league player and as a eventual major league player. For them to first of all blame me for a play that was not to be blamed for, that hurt for a long time, and for him to have apologized later on about that was pretty cool. I was amazed. I couldn't even believe that he remembered the play. I couldn't even and for him to have done that was actually really cool.
That is a cool story.
Yeah, that's a great story.
I gotta tell this story. So you mentioned Max Venable.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, the Phillies bring in his son, Will Venable, for a late spring training tryout. I don't know what you call it, minor league contract. He's gonna come in for a week to see if he can make the team. So
how dare you, Jim?
I got to tell this.
How dare you? How dare you?
So they signed Will Venable, and I'm talking to Todd like an hour later, and he goes, they signed Will Venable. I go, it's Venable. He goes, what? I said, it's pronounced Venable. It's spelled Venable. And he goes, I thought it was Venable. I said, no, it's Venable. So he goes, really? I never knew that. So now our day goes.
This is so
our
good.
day goes on. We're up in the press box, in and out of the clubhouse. We're finally gonna at like 4:30. We're gonna meet with Pete McCannon. They signed the guy at 9 in the morning. Now it's 4:30, and we're gonna talk to Pete McCannon. And we're down the left field line in Clearwater. And Todd says, "What are your plans for Venable?"
I'm such a loser.
I love it. What an ass you are, Jim.
He looks at him like he's got 10 heads. He's like, what?
Pete.
He goes, Venable. His name is Venable.
I immediately turn to Jim. I'm like, I am gonna murder you. I am going to murder you.
I didn't know about that one. That's funny.
So good. So good.
The little things you do to keep your sanity on a baseball beat.
So funny, dude.
Oh, man, that's great, man. That's a great way to end it. Oh, my goodness. Well, thanks, everybody, for listening. We will be back with you later this week. Venable.